Hands on the roof! Now! Yeah! Okay, please!
The gun was already drawn. No warning, no good afternoon. Just the barrel of a Glock 19 pointed directly at your son's temple through the driver's side window, and a voice screaming, actually screaming, "Hands! Show me your fucking hands!" Marcus's hands shot up so fast his knuckles cracked against the roof. Your scream caught in your throat, turned to stone. 3 seconds ago you'd been laughing about the price of gas. Now a white officer with wild eyes and spit on his lips was one twitch away from making you a mother who buries her child. Out of the vehicle now. The second officer appeared at your window, younger. His gun wasn't drawn, but his hand trembled on the holster. Behind the cruiser, a third vehicle screeched up, unmarked, black SUV, 2 more men emerging. 4 of them for a traffic stop. Marcus's voice came out steady, terrifyingly steady. "Officer, my name is Marcus Carter. I'm a professor at Yale Law School. My hands are visible. I'm going to slowly." The first officer smashed his fist against the window. "I said out." That's when you noticed his name tag, Morrison, and the way his pupils were blown wide, and the slight tremor in his gun hand. He was high. The cop holding a gun to your son's head was high on something. They dragged Marcus out through the window. Not the door, the window. Grabbed his shirt collar and hauled him through like he was a bag of trash, his body slamming onto the asphalt. You lunged for your door handle, but the younger cop, Pace, his tag Reed, jammed it shut from outside. "Ma'am, stay in the vehicle." Through your window, you watched Morrison plant his knee in Marcus's spine. Watched your son's face scrape against gravel. Watched his mouth open in a gasp of pain and humiliation. "Marijuana," Morrison announced loudly to no one and everyone. "I smell marijuana, strong, recent use." Marcus hadn't smoked anything in his life. He'd never even tried it in college. That's not. Marcus tried to speak, but Morrison ground his knee deeper. "Resisting, he's resisting." He wasn't, you could see he wasn't. His body was completely still, his hands palm up on the asphalt. But Morrison's partner was already calling it in. "Suspect resisting arrest, backup requested." Suspect. Your son, who'd argued before the Supreme Court, who'd taught constitutional law to senators' children, who'd never even gotten a speeding ticket, was a suspect. That's when you remembered your phone. Your hands shook as you pulled it from your purse. You'd been taking photos of fall leaves 5 minutes ago. Now you aimed it at the window, at the scene unfolding outside, and pressed record. The timestamp would later show 3:04 p.m. By 3:06 p.m., everything you thought you knew about the world would be proven devastatingly, irrevocably wrong. Morrison cuffed Marcus so tight you could see the metal cutting into skin. Then he stood up, wiped his hands on his pants, and looked directly at you. His smile was the worst part. Not a smirk, not a sneer. An actual smile, warm and wide, like he'd just run into an old friend. "Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to step out now, nice and slow." Pace opened your door. You climbed out on legs that barely held you, phone clutched behind your back. They hadn't seen it. Please God, don't let them see it. "Your son was driving erratically," Morrison said conversationally, like he was discussing the weather. Like Marcus wasn't face down on the highway, blood trickling from where his cheek had split open. Swerving across lanes. And that smell, Hugh. That's gonna be a problem for the professor. "He wasn't swerving, we were." "Ma'am," Morrison stepped closer, too close. You could smell coffee on his breath and something else, something chemical and sharp. "Are you calling me a liar?" The air went still. Even the wind seemed to stop. Marcus tried to lift his head. "Mama, don't." Morrison's boot came down on the back of Marcus's neck. Not hard enough to kill, just hard enough to silence. "Your son's got a real problem with authority," Morrison observed. "That's gonna make this worse for him, but you seem like a reasonable woman." His eyes traveled down your body and back up. "We can make this easy, or we can make this complicated. Your choice." You understood what he was offering. Silence in exchange for, what? Watching them arrest your son and saying nothing, or something worse. The phone felt like it was burning in your hand. "I want to call my lawyer," you said. Morrison's smile never wavered. "Of course you do, but see, we've got a situation here. Your vehicle, it's involved in an active drug investigation. That means we need to search it. Thoroughly. He glanced at Pace. How long you think a thorough search takes, Officer Pace? 3-4 hours, Pace said. He sounded nervous. Maybe more if we find anything. Anything like what? You demanded. Morrison shrugged. Won't know till we look. They found it in 7 minutes. A plastic bag tucked under the passenger seat. White powder inside, maybe 2 grams. Pace held it up triumphantly. Vehicle's dirty. Marcus went rigid. That is not mine. That was planted. I'm a law professor, for God's sake, I would never. A law professor with a cocaine habit. Morrison shook his head in mock disappointment. That's gonna be a hell of a headline. Yale Law Professor arrested in drug bust. Your career's over, son. Test it, Marcus said. His voice was shaking now, all that careful composure crumbling. Test it right now. It won't be cocaine. It can't be cocaine because I've never touched drugs in my life. Morrison kicked him. Not the boot on the neck this time, a full kick to the ribs. You heard something crack. Your scream tore out of you before you could stop it. You lunged forward, but Pace grabbed your arm, twisted it behind your back. Pain exploded up your shoulder. Assaulting an officer, Morrison noted calmly. Mom is making it worse for herself. I wasn't. What's that in your hand? Your blood turned to ice. Morrison was staring at your phone, at the screen still glowing, still recording. Give me that. No. The word came out before you could think. Stupid, suicidal, but something in you, something old and deep and forged in Alabama dirt, refused to hand it over. Morrison's face changed. The smile vanished. What replaced it was worse, something cold and calculating and infinitely dangerous. Officer Pace, I believe this woman is recording us without consent. That's illegal in Virginia. It wasn't. You knew it wasn't. Virginia was a one-party consent state. Marcus had taught you that years ago, but Morrison didn't care about the law. He cared about the video. Last chance, Morrison said quietly. Give me the phone or we add obstruction to your charges, and then we see what happens to your son while you're both in custody. Marcus was trying to speak through broken ribs. Mama, don't. You looked at your son, at the blood on his face, at the way he was trying to curl around his damaged ribs, while Morrison's boot hovered near his head. You looked at Morrison, at the calculating cruelty in his eyes. And you made a choice. Catch, you said. Then you hurled the phone into the woods. Morrison's face went purple. You stupid. He started toward the trees, but Pace grabbed his arm. Derek, not worth it. We got the car, we got the drugs, we got them both. Let it go. For a terrible moment you thought Morrison would go anyway, would drag you into those woods and... But he stopped, took a breath, smiled again. Okay, he said softly. Okay, you want to play it that way, fine. He turned to Pace. Call it in, both of them. Possession with intent to distribute, resisting arrest, assault on an officer, destruction of evidence. He crouched down next to Marcus. How's that law degree working out for you now, Professor? They loaded Marcus into the first cruiser. They put you in the second. As the door slammed shut, sealing you in the cage that smelled of piss and fear and decades of other people's terror, you saw Morrison walk toward the woods. He was going to find the phone. He was going to destroy it. And then it would be your word against his. A black woman and her son versus 2 white cops with badges and guns, and the full weight of the system behind them. You'd lost. The cruiser pulled away. Through the metal grate you watched your son's car disappear behind crime scene tape. Watched Morrison emerge from the woods, empty-handed but smiling. You'd thrown the phone 20 feet into thick underbrush. Even if he found it, the video was uploading. You'd set it to auto backup 3 years ago after reading about too many phones lost or damaged in police custody. But uploads took time, and these back roads had spotty service. Please, you prayed, please let it upload, please let someone see this. Please let this not be the end. The county jail was exactly what you'd expected, and somehow worse. Fluorescent lights that turned everyone's skin the color of corpses. Guards who processed you like you were cattle, strip search, delousing shower, orange jumpsuit that smelled of industrial detergent and despair. You were 63 years old. You'd raised a son, earned a nursing degree, survived cancer and widowhood and every indignity America could throw at a black woman. But you'd never been in a cage before. They put you in holding with 9 other women. Most were young. All were black or brown. Some were high, some were sick, some just stared at the walls with the hollow eyes of people who'd been here before and knew they'd be here again. A girl who couldn't have been more than 19 sat down next to you. First time. You nodded. What they get you for? Cocaine, you said. The word felt surreal. They planted it in my son's car. The girl didn't look surprised. Morrison. Your head snapped up. You know him. Everyone knows Morrison. She gestured around the cell. Half the women in here, Morrison or Pace, they got a system. Pull you over for nothing, find drugs that weren't there, lock you up. She laughed bitterly. My cousin got stopped last month. They found meth in her glove box. She's never touched drugs, just had the bad luck to be driving while black in Morrison's district. What happened to her? The girl's face went hard. Took a plea. Public defender said fight it and she'd get 10 years. Plead guilty, she'd get 2, so she pled. Now she's got a record, lost her job, lost custody of her kid. She met your eyes. That's what they do. They don't need the drugs to be real. They just need you to be scared enough to confess. Your stomach turned. How many people has he done this to? Dozens, maybe hundreds. Been doing it for years. Then why is he still? Because who's gonna believe us? The girl's laugh was sharp as broken glass. Bunch of poor black women with public defenders going up against cops. System don't work for people like us. System works exactly how it's supposed to. You thought about Marcus, about his Yale degree and his Supreme Court arguments and his shelves full of awards. If they could do this to him, they could do this to anyone. Angela arrived at midnight. Your daughter-in-law looked like she'd aged 10 years in 10 hours. Her eyes were red but dry. Public defenders didn't cry. They couldn't afford to. Where's Marcus? You asked. Men's block. They cracked 2 of his ribs. Her voice was clinical, detached. He'll need x-rays. I've requested a medical transfer, but they're processing the paperwork. She pulled out a tablet. I need you to tell me everything, every detail. Don't leave anything out. You told her the stop, the gun, Morrison's pupils, the planted drugs, the phone. You recorded it. Yes, I threw it in the woods when he tried to take it, but it was set to auto-upload. To where? iCloud and Google Drive, redundant backups. For the first time, Angela smiled. Gloria, you brilliant, brilliant woman. She pulled out her own phone. What's your login? You gave it to her. She typed rapidly, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. Then she went very still. It uploaded, she whispered. Gloria, it all uploaded every second. She turned the tablet to face you. On the screen, Morrison's face. The gun. Marcus being dragged through the window, the boot on his neck, the planted drugs. All of it. This is it, Angela said. This is everything we need. She stood up. I'm getting you both out tonight, and then we're going to destroy them. But they didn't get out that night. The bail hearing was scheduled for Monday, 4 days away. Angela filed emergency motions. The judge denied them. Weekend arrests require weekend protocol, he ruled, knowing full well there was no weekend judge available. 4 days. Marcus was attacked on the second night. 3 inmates jumped him in the shower, broke his nose, fractured his jaw. Guards didn't see anything. But the inmate who mopped the blood afterward whispered to Angela during visiting hours. Morrison sent word, said the professor needed to learn respect. Morrison had reached inside the jail. That changed everything. We go public, Angela decided, now tonight. Diane Washington made the calls. By dawn, the video was on every news station in Virginia. By noon, it had gone national. By evening, it was international. Yale Law Professor brutalized and framed by police. The response was immediate and volcanic. Yale's president called for a federal investigation. The NAACP filed a civil rights lawsuit. The Virginia Attorney General announced a criminal probe. And people, millions of people, shared the video, added their own stories, demanded justice. Morrison and Pace were suspended by Tuesday morning. Marcus and Gloria were released Tuesday afternoon. But it wasn't over, not even close. The real twist came 3 weeks later. Diane Washington called you at 2 a.m. Gloria, you need to see this. You drove to her office in your bathrobe. She had documents spread across her conference table, police reports, evidence logs, lab results. I've been digging into Morrison and Pace's history, she said, looking at every arrest they've made in the past 5 years, and I found something. She pulled up a spreadsheet, hundreds of names, hundreds of arrests. 87 people arrested for drug possession by these 2 officers in the past 3 years. You know how many of those cases went to trial? How many? None, 0. Every single person took a plea deal. She leaned forward. Because the public defenders advised them to. Because fighting the charges meant risking serious prison time. Because the system is designed to make you confess, even when you're innocent. So all these people, all framed, all coerced, all convicted of crimes they didn't commit. Diane's hands were shaking. And here's the thing, Gloria. I ran the lab results on the cocaine from your case. Powdered sugar, Angela told me. Not just powdered sugar. Diane pulled up a document. The lab found trace elements of Morrison's DNA on the bag, skin cells, which means he handled it before it was found in your car. Your breath caught, he planted it himself. Gets better, I subpoenaed Morrison's police locker. Want to guess what they found? More drugs. 7 more bags, all cocaine, all with Morrison's DNA, all ready to plant. Diane's smile was savage. He was running a quota system, needed a certain number of drug arrests per month to qualify for federal grant money, so he was manufacturing the arrests himself. The room spun. How much money? $50,000 over 3 years, split between Morrison and Pace. They destroyed lives for money. For a department grant that probably went to new tasers or traffic cones or some other bullshit. 87 people, 87 families, for $50,000. We're filing a class action, Diane said. Everyone Morrison and Pace ever arrested. We're getting every conviction overturned, every record expunged, and we're suing the department for everything they've got. You thought about the girl in holding, the one whose cousin lost her kid. When do we start? Already started. Diane pulled out her phone. I've got reporters from the Post and the Times calling in an hour. CNN wants you and Marcus tomorrow. 60 Minutes is flying in a crew next week. We're making this so loud, so public, that they can't bury it. She was right. They couldn't. The trial lasted 8 weeks. The prosecution brought forward victim after victim. Young mothers who'd lost custody, college students who'd lost scholarships, a veteran who'd lost his military benefits, all arrested by Morrison and Pace, all convicted based on planted evidence. The defense tried to argue that some of the drugs might have been real, that some of these people might have been guilty. Then Angela put the crime lab director on the stand. In your professional opinion, Angela asked, is it possible that all 87 bags of cocaine found by officers Morrison and Pace over 3 years were coincidentally identical in chemical composition? No, the director said. That would be statistically impossible. These drugs all came from the same source. And that source was. Based on the DNA evidence and purchase records we obtained, Officer Morrison purchased bulk powdered sugar from a restaurant supply company. He mixed it with trace amounts of actual cocaine, likely from the evidence locker, to fool field tests. Then he planted it during traffic stops. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order, but it was too late. The jury had heard enough. Guilty on all counts. Morrison got 23 years, Pace got 18. The department was forced to pay $47 million in damages, every victim compensated, every record cleared. And the police chief, the one who'd ignored 6 years of complaints about Morrison, he was forced to resign. But here's what the news didn't report. Here's what they couldn't fit into their sound bites and headlines. The girl from Holding, her name was Shanice. She got her record expunged, but her cousin never got her daughter back. The foster system had already terminated her rights. The veteran got his benefits reinstated, but he'd already been homeless for 2 years. The damage was done. The college student got her scholarship back, but she'd already dropped out, already gotten married, already built a different life. She didn't go back. You can overturn a conviction. You can expunge a record. You can even put the bad cops in prison. But you can't give people back the years they lost, the opportunities that vanished, the way they flinch now when they see police lights. Morrison and Pace stole more than freedom. They stole futures. Marcus went back to teaching, but everything was different. His students looked at him with a mix of awe and pity. His colleagues didn't know how to talk to him anymore. And at night, Angela would find him sitting in the dark, staring at nothing, his hand unconsciously rubbing the scars on his wrists where the handcuffs had cut too deep. "I knew it intellectually," he told you one evening. "I've taught about police misconduct for years. I've represented victims. I've written about systemic racism in criminal justice." He looked at his hands. "But knowing it and living it. Mama, I don't know how to teach this anymore. How do I stand in front of a classroom and talk about the Fourth Amendment when I know that none of it matters if the cops decide you're guilty?" You didn't have an answer. But Maya did. Your granddaughter, 8 years old now, crawled into her father's lap. "You teach it," she said, "because some people don't know yet, and if you teach them, maybe they'll fix it." Marcus held his daughter and cried. And the next semester, he taught the best class of his career. 2 years after the verdict, you got a call from the governor's office. Virginia was establishing a new task force on police accountability. They wanted you to serve on it. "Why me?" you asked. "Because you didn't just survive," the governor's aide said. "You fought back, and you won. We need people like you shaping policy." You thought about it. You were 65 now, tired. You'd earned the right to rest. But you thought about Shanice, about the veteran, about the 87 lives Morrison and Pace had destroyed, about all the ones they didn't catch. "I'll do it," you said. Here's what they don't tell you about justice. It's slow, it's partial, it's often inadequate. But it's also cumulative. Every video recorded, every complaint filed, every person who refuses to stay silent, it adds up. Morrison and Pace are in prison. The department changed its policies. Body cameras are now mandatory. A civilian review board was established. Officers can't make arrests without supervision in their first 5 years. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's more than yesterday. And on Sunday mornings, when you're at Marcus and Angela's house and Maya shows you her latest school project, a presentation on civil rights heroes, with you and Marcus on the final slide, you think, maybe this is how change happens. Not all at once, not in dramatic revelations and perfect endings, but in increments, in videos uploaded, in mothers who refuse to look away, in 8-year-olds who grow up knowing that when the system is broken, you don't accept it. You fix it. Last month, Morrison's lawyers filed for early release. Good behavior, they claimed, model prisoner. The parole board scheduled a hearing. You were invited to speak. You stood in that room, the same room where Morrison had once smiled at you like you were nothing, and you looked at him in his prison jumpsuit, his hands cuffed, his eyes on the floor. You thought about that hat tip, about his boot on Marcus's neck, about the 87 lives he'd stolen. And you spoke for 3 minutes. You didn't yell, you didn't cry, you just stated facts. When you finished, the parole board denied the request. Morrison won't be eligible again for another 5 years. As you left, you passed him in the hallway. For just a second, your eyes met. You didn't tip your hat. You didn't need to. He already knew. The end. But not really. Because somewhere right now, someone is getting pulled over. Somewhere, a mother is watching her son put his hands on the wheel. Somewhere, evidence is being planted. The fight isn't over. It's never over. But as long as people like Gloria keep recording, as long as people like Marcus keep teaching, as long as people like Diane keep fighting, there's hope. Not perfect hope. Not easy hope. But hope nonetheless. And sometimes that's enough to start.